So, good morning. We're talking about Small is Beautiful, study of economics as if people matter. This text was written by Ernst Schumacher. He was a German-born economist that was born in 1911 and died in 1977. Some of his career highlights was that he was chief economic advisor to the British National Coal Board from 1950 till 1970. And some of his key works were Small is Beautiful, that is a text we had to study, that was written in 1973, and some essays of economic development also. He was influenced by Gandhi principles and Buddhist economics, and also sustainable development philosophies. His central economic philosophies were critique of Western development models, as he advocated for human-centric economics, arguing that Western industrial models are unsuitable for developing nations. He also developed the concept of intermediate technology because he had a vision for affordable, labor-intensive and decentralized solutions suited to the socio-economic needs of the undeveloped areas. If we try to situate this text like in the timeline, it was written in 1973. So in talking about the economic and development context, the pre-1970s development model was dominated by the larger scale of industrialization and urbanization as symbols of progress. And there was also a shift in thinking because there was an emerge in critical voices against the one-size-fits-all economic models, and particularly for developing nations. How does the author suits in place in this development discourse? We would say that he advocated for a shift of centralized capital-heavy approaches to decentralized, locally adapted strategies.
There are two main arguments that are discussed in this section. The first one is the importance of employment over output, where he states that it is a priority to increase the largest number of job placements and workplaces than to put value on the output of this. So number one would be create workplaces where people live, which are rural areas in its vast majority, to sort of counteract the urban migration that happens. The second one would be workplaces should be cheap enough to be created in larger areas, in larger numbers, This is based on the experiences of many countries such as India and Turkey, where oftentimes government programs focus on creating high-value workplaces, but considering the economic conditions, it's only reserved to a small, privileged number of people and is never diffused? English, in enough quantity. The third one would be the application of simple methods to minimize the requirement of skills. Oftentimes, most of the population has low education and low skills, therefore it is important to adapt production methods to this ability or to the level of their skill. And the fourth one is that production should be from local material and local use, and this is to guarantee resilience and sustainability long term. In the second main argument is what Professor Viviana introduced in the previous presentation, which is the importance of intermediate technology, where he states that modern technology is only productive in modern environments. This is to say that handing, for example, a series of MacBooks and putting it in the middle of a township in Mozambique is not going to increase productivity. So it's important to make sure that this application of technology is context-based. The second one is that technology is not just itself. Again, the matter of context is important. So the material required for this technology, the human resources that it requires for maintenance and use is also taken into consideration. And even the output and final consumer, because producing high-end materials in a context where there is no market, there is no consumer, is pointless. The third argument is that it is important to, well, this has already been stated, the importance of developing intermediate technology between advanced and traditional technology. He uses the example of, if you are in a place where technology is at a level 0, and you compare it to large metropolitan areas where you have technology at a level 1,000, it is important to create a sort of level 100 technology that allows for evolution from where the place is, but also is adequate in the sense that it's not too advanced for the people that live there. And the following one is that agencies, development agencies, aid agencies should focus on collecting, systemizing, and developing local knowledge. His main approaches are that economy should be human-centered, where we should prioritize people and not necessarily the output. He also says that it is important to do this because it is more important to make sure that people have jobs, and after they have jobs, then they will pursue the increase of value. Another point is that we should aim for sustainable rural development by creating small-scale, labor-intensive, and locally adapted industries. And the importance of knowledge over financial aid, because like the saying goes, it's more important to teach a man how to fish than to hand him fish. Further insights that we gained were that community-led projects are more resilient. Balanced teams, both in the donor and receiving countries, should be established between actors such as administrators, communicators, and business people. That the metrics of success should be adapted to the context in which they're being used. You cannot use terms such as investment, savings, which are very adapted to more developed contexts in underdeveloped or developing contexts. So it is important to consider terms like mobilization, skill, suppression of basic needs in beneficiary contexts. And that unintentional neocolonialism is more dangerous than the intentional one because it creates debt, dependency, and other vicious cycles.
So, for the additional remarks, Schumacher's model emphasizes that scaling down of political units allows for scaling up of technology that's used in a more beneficial and meaningful way. He also suggests that any amount of capital does not necessarily produce the biggest output when concentrated on the smallest number of workplaces, and instead he advocates for the spreading of more systematically familiar and technical modes of production within a population that would increase the supply of the apparent shortage of entrepreneurs in developing countries. For the critical reflection and the applicability in today's global economy, Schumacher's theory presents similarities with contemporary development policies like the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals. It is also relevant in developed nations like Belgium, which presents rural decline and high unemployment rates amongst young people, and also relevant in still developing nations. Globalization is also inevitable, and because of this, intermediate technology may limit competitiveness with high-tech developed areas, and local self-sufficiency can lead to the risk of economic isolation from global trade benefits and limit the access to advanced technologies and innovations. This brings us to the debate questions. The first one is, could Shoemaker's labor over output proposal inadvertently promote cheap labor, like what's happening in the developing countries still today? The second one is, could Shoemaker's idea of small-scale, labor-intensive economies be a sustainable alternative to large-scale industrialization? And how could this approach be applied in countries with different economic needs and manpowers? And the last one is, which approach is more likely to create sustainable and inclusive jobs? One that prioritizes national development strategies, or one that ties jobs creation to foreign financial aid? Thank you for your attention.
So our topic was homemade family houses, and this was Anna Heringer's personal story about building sustainable houses in rural Bangladesh, in Rudrapur to be exact. And there were 13 students, 8 from Rak University in Dhaka in Bangladesh and 5 from Base Habitat and University of Art, Linz in Austria. There were also 3 families, so 3 houses and 18 people working. And the challenge was to improve living conditions while being sustainable and meeting the needs and dreams of people, while also using local materials. So Anna Heringer, born in October 1977 in Germany, studied architecture at the University of Art in Linz, Austria. She did a thesis, School Handmade in Bangladesh, which was later realized also in Rudrapur, Bangladesh, and won several awards. She's an honorary professor of the UNESCO Chair in Earth and Architecture, Construction, Cultures and Sustainable Development. She's an architect and visiting professor at the Technical University Vienna, Austria. She lectures worldwide and was a visiting professor at universities in Stuttgart, Linz, Vienna, and Belgrade. And some her own words. The vision behind and motivation for my work is to explore and use architecture as a medium to strengthen cultural and individual confidence, to support local economies, and to foster ecological balance. And this we can also see in this project. So the timeline here, so this project was from September 2007 until April 2008. And the thesis mentioned earlier was 2005, so it could also fit in this timeline. Heringer's use of local materials for eco-friendly, low-carbon homes reflects the sustainable architecture focus seen also in other projects in this timeline. There's also a UN report noting the shift from rural to urban living, a global trend that leads to so-called brain drain, also discussed in this project. Heringer's project tries to counter this trend by improving rural living conditions, encouraging people to stay and strengthen their communities. Like other projects promoting local development on the timeline, these projects' homes try to maintain cultural identity, fostering a sense of pride and self-sufficiency in rural areas. Timeline also shows UN Climate Change Conference, and this project's climate responsive design resonates with this, demonstrating how rural housing can contribute to sustainability and climate resilience. Homemade Houses offers a sustainable rural development model that addresses urban migration, climate adaptation, and cultural preservation, making it a valuable addition to the timeline's broader topics.
So the main arguments that we find is Anna Heringer's new model. A little bit more about the context of this model is that she received a comment from a guy who has been involved in the rural development of this area for over two decades, where he comments that a house made of earth would never be as attractive as a house, as attractive as a brick house to the villager. So she thought a lot about this comment, and she had lots of experiment in the design, thinking that we cannot, of course, force or convince someone with rational arguments about sustainability, but we could do so with a comfortable building that they can be very proud of, and something that touches them emotionally. So in the design, she used local materials like earth, bamboo, straw, and coconut, because they have good environmental impact, high level of climate adaptability. They of course can support local economy and strengthen community identity. Because to her, the hope for the future is that this new understanding of local capacity and identity would motivate building design that is oriented towards exploiting what's locally available. Secondly is indoor climate control, using coconut fiber, insulation, and earth for thermal mass, glass windows to block winter winds, enhancing comfort, and numerous openings for cross ventilation and natural lighting. Enhanced durability, addition for a second floor to provide privacy and unique uplift experience. Last but not least is keep the remaining land for garden, to address local food and local food shortage. What is also special about this project is that the architects work closely with the family resident, participate in design decision and construction, which fosters strong community collaboration. To her, a house is no longer just a shelter to store things or to sleep in at night. It has evolved to becoming more defined as a home. Architecture will play a decisive role in the future development of Bangladesh. Using indigenous resources is a basic principle of sustainable development work. To reach a stable and really sustainable level of self-sufficiency, it must be a result of free choice. So the people of Bangladesh nowadays tend to use and seek for more modern materials like brick, concrete, and cement, which she afraid that this will reduce the demand and also make the traditional craftsmanship of the village slowly vanish and disappear. That's why she also come up with a strategy to improve sustainable development in Bangladesh. First is the vertical expansion, building two-story houses would help maintaining the same building footprint. Secondly is combine low technology with high technology. Third is low cost, local materials with a labor-intensive construction, so that they can keep the building sector economic profit stays in the region. And then the choice of building materials is really important as they would have to respond to the emotional aspects. And lastly, use beauty and comfort as teaser with sustainability as an underlying concept. That leads us to the conclusion of this case study. The project took part in diverse participatory process involving students, families, and the community taking advantages from their local knowledges. The new housing model for peasant families integrates traditional lifestyle with modern improvements, using local materials to enhance comfort, safety, and durability. The future development of Bangladesh depends on balancing the environmental and economic impacts of construction materials and practices, particularly with regard to land use and sustainability.
Yeah, and the text also highlighted that building two storage houses in rural Bangladesh can free up land and also counter the brain drain, talking about the migration from the rural areas to the city. And this also, it is because this permit, the use of the local material, also the knowledge of the people, this balance sustainability because improve the local economy. Then we also have this a sustainable level of self-sufficiency should come from a free choice involving reflection on local potential and also resources. But it is also true that there is a trend in consumption rather than in self-sufficiency. And this, of course, result in a loss of regional identity. And finally, the challenge is to find a balance between the multiple factors. And in the text, Anna mentioned that this could be emotional, also cultural, but specifically economical aspects. But all of this with a focus in sustainability. So just for some critical questions and additional remarks. Firstly, we were thinking that the text came out for us with the idea of that this is important to find other ways to communicate and support some technical decisions in projects generally in order to achieve the decision making. And we found really interesting this case when Anna mentioned that they realized that they might not convince the local people with some rational arguments about sustainability, but they could do the same, showing the people how comfortable and good could be the place using local materials. Another important thing is that this project involves the community, it is true, but by doing this also not only foster the durability, but also enable the people to maintain their own homes and maybe in future do the future improvement better. Something that maybe is just really hard to do, and in this particular case, it's easier because they involve more the people. It's also clear that in this project, this project improve constructive techniques and also provide technical assistance from professional tutelation practices. Well, this is the third one. Yeah. However, we were thinking that the challenge might be how to transform these processes, this good knowledge and process into something more scalable, like I don't know, like a huge technical assistant program, in order to take advantage of this kind of knowledge and experiences. And also, the text also emphasizes, we think that the text might emphasize too much the significant role of the architecture, while giving the example of that what would happen, if people in rural Bangladesh that are around like 80 million people, started constructing in just brick, and steel, what would be the impact on the environment? But it is also true that however, this substantial challenge must be addressed in multiple scales, like planning, territorial planning, etc. And finally, we also have this idea of the idea of the vertical expansion in rural area, talking about the two-story houses. To prevent talent drain is somewhat idealistic, because we think that it really needs a broader and stronger actions for some other levels of development, and it could be like the improvement in economy, development, infrastructure for sanitation, education, health, better public policies, of course. And all these broader things, it would be improved the living condition and create better opportunities in order to reduce the need to migrate to the cities. And finally, we have these three questions for you. So it is: do you think Heringer's approach would create dependency on local market, resources, and limit innovation? Is it possible to replicate this experience on a larger scale in rural contexts while maintaining consideration for identity, aspiration, and emotion of the users? And finally, how might Heringer's approach be adapted for an urban environment, and what would be the challenges? Thank you. Yeah.
Okay, who would like to contribute one way or another to the discussion?
I'd like to address the third question from the first presentation, which approach is more like create single inclusive jobs. I think having national development strategies for the financial aid, because the latter, the foreign financial aid, is dependent on like foreign policy, which can be volatile and which also can inadvertently or deliberately foster neo-colonial independence. But of course, for the national development strategies, it is also dependent on having a working and a competent national government that prioritizes public interest.
I would only agree from the experience that I have from my own country, Mozambique, where after the independence, I'm not sure if it was the World Bank, but to get financial aid, the government had to relinquish certain industrial activities. So things like the processing of cashews. The processing, the national, there was a large industry for the processing of cashews. So the World Bank was like, okay, you need financial aid, but this is not viable. We think it's not, so we abandoned that. But a series of other industries were abandoned, and that really created a very under-industrialized country, and that is the reality to this day. And now the country is trying to create policies to go back to